Hello, everybody, and welcome to the June Boys Booksplosion Book of the Month live show. This is our Book of the Month for the month of, what month is it? It's March. Right? April. What is time anymore? What is time?
This is our April Book of the Month.
Yes. I'm Jesse.
I'm Christine. I'm Kat.
And we're Booksplosion. We have a monthly live show on here where we talk about a specific book. This month we're talking about the June Boys. We also have another live show every month called Dear Booksplosion.
Yay!
Yay!
And that's not about a specific book. It's just kind of like podcast style where we have a topic that we're going to talk about with all of you, and we chat. And it's fun times, and we take questions from the audience and input and all that stuff.
Yes. So our next Dear Booksplosion live show is happening on May 20th. So if you want to join us for that, we'd love to have you. And then our next Booksplosion Book of the Month pick for the month of May is We Are the WILDCATS by SIOBHAN, VIVIAN. And this live show is going to be happening on May 30th. So you should pick it up and join us. Does anybody want to explain the book?
I can try.
Okay.
I did it last time. I feel like I always do this one. So this is a suspense kind of thrillery novel where we're taking place in 24 hours. And it's about a field hockey team that's coach is kind of toxic and sketchy, and something goes down and the girls are trying to figure it out, or we're trying to figure out what happened and who done it or whatever. It's kind of vague in what happens because you want to experience it as you go. But I'm very excited about it. The blurb is really exciting.
It's a really exciting blurb.
It really is.
One of those books that takes place over the course of one night.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tight timeline. And those I feel always contribute nicely to suspenseful, tension-filled books.
We love a tight timeline.
Yes, we do.
Books that take place in 24 hours.
But again, today we were talking about the June Boys, and we worked with HarperCollins this month. So let's kick it off and share some of our thoughts. Christine, you want to start?
Sure. Okay, where do I begin? Well, I like how dark and intense this book got. Rather quickly, and I like the change back and forth. I really liked the concept of the Elizabeth letters and how those progressed, and seeing in their mindset almost that way, getting a sense of how they were feeling and how they were coping, and all that was really fascinating. Instead of just seeing Thea search for them, I felt like that really added a lot. And yeah, without spoilers, it's kind of hard to go very far.
Yeah.
But, it was a ride, and I enjoyed it.
Yes. Kitten, what about you?
Yeah, as far as the mystery aspect, this really did it for me because I was so engaged throughout and had so many theories, and I really did not know what was going to happen. And I love that because I'm usually pretty good at predicting books, but I was suspicious of everyone, and I was I can see this going so many different ways, and I really enjoyed that and theorizing and everything. I'm excited to share some of my crazy theories that I came up with while reading this. But yeah, I really enjoyed a lot about this. One aspect in particular that I really liked was how involved Thea's dad was. He's one of the main characters in this book, and their father-daughter relationship was so interesting, and I feel not something that we see a lot in books. So I was really intrigued by that, and also just one of the themes of this book is kind of, which still isn't a spoiler because it's fairly early, that she starts maybe suspecting her father of being the Gemini thief. And so one of the themes of this book that I really like how it was explored is what happens when someone you love, someone who is close to you, might have done something bad, and sort of the complicated feelings of loving someone and hating them, or just that whole thing. I was really into that.
Yeah, the whole idea that as you get older, you realize that you can feel a lot of things at once.
Yeah,
happy, but also really upset at the same time, and all that.
Yeah.
stuff.
I just realized we didn't say what the book is all about.
Oh, we missed our synopsis section. You want to give it?
So basically, this book takes place in Tennessee, is that right?
Kentucky?
Kentucky?
I don't remember Tennessee.
I don't remember. Anyway, every year these boys get taken, and they're taken from June 1st all the way to the next year, which is June 30th. And then they're released into the world, and usually like they're unharmed and like nothing bad has happened to them really, except for this time when a boy shows up dead. And we follow our main character, Thea, and her cousin has been taken captive as a June boy. And so she's trying to find him and also get to the bottom of who's behind this whole like kidnapping situation. So that's what the book is about.
I like the whole concept of them not being harmed and stuff. Like, it's kind of confusing because obviously when we see them in this time around, like they're not being fed enough, they're not being given enough water, they're struggling. So I mean,
they are being harmed, just like not like killed.
They're not being like cut up into pieces. But they're being mentally really up and just in general forced to like survive in a bunker with barely anything.
I that's one of the things that like really intrigued me the most about this book was that whole concept. It's like, why is someone kidnapping them and keeping them for 13 months and like taking care of them? But at the same time, this is obviously like a very weird and traumatizing thing. So like, what's the reason? Like, why? I was just so intrigued by that whole concept.
Yeah. What did you think, Jesseth?
I really liked it as well. Trying to add on to things that haven't already been said. I really liked the dynamics between all the different characters. Like, I feel like it was really interesting because a lot of Thea's family members were like suspects in the case. And I felt like that was really interesting to see. And then also like her boyfriend's sister was like on the case and stuff. And like, that was a really interesting dynamic. So I liked that aspect. I also really loved going back and forth between Thea and Alice's perspective and seeing all the things that were going on with him. Because I feel like without that perspective, it would have not necessarily fallen flat, but like it just wouldn't have been as suspenseful, I guess you could say.
The depth that you get with that, you know, you get a whole new appreciation for like the trauma and what they're going through by being there with him.
Yeah. So I really liked having his perspective. I feel like it really shaped out the story. And yeah, it was overall great. I really enjoyed it. So we are now going to be jumping into the spoiler section. So if you have not read the June Boys, go read it and then come back and watch the discussion. But we're jumping into spoilers in 3, 2, 1, spoiler time.
Okay, quick question. This isn't really spoilery. Like, so the letters were called the Elizabeth letters, and like for like a couple of chapters, I was like, did I miss something about who the fuck Elizabeth is?
Yeah, I almost was like, is Thea short for Elizabeth?
I know. I was like, right to Thea? Like, but then like at the end, I think Court explains that it was Elizabeth Smart. That was the concept. But wow, I was like, I missed something. I don't know who Elizabeth is. I feel really dumb.
No, yeah, I had that theory of Elizabeth is Thea, like Thea is short for Elizabeth. Like as soon as I heard the names, I was like, oh, the main character is Thea, and the Elizabeth letters, I was like, called it. That's her name. He's right into her. That like was so not the case at all. And, like pretty immediately, it was revealed that that was not the case because he's like talking about Thea in his letters to Elizabeth. So I'm like, okay, well that theory is out.
How is Thea short for Elizabeth?
Because Elizabeth has like the TH in there, like the. I call her Thea a lot. I don't know. I thought I was a genius, and I was like, Elizabeth, Thea, I got this.
Another place where I thought it was really dumb is like I was listening to the audiobook, and like I missed the dates for like the first couple chapters too, and like eventually like I caught on because I started listening harder because like this doesn't make any sense. But like Tank is in the captivity, and Tank is with Thea, and I'm like, what are there 2 Tanks? Are there 2 parallel universes? Are there 2? Then I really thought for a second. I was like, Tank is a ghost. This is Fight Club. Then he starts talking about how he thinks Pink, and then but like he does stuff that you need to be physical to do in
right.
But like, I don't know. Anyway, he's there. It's just a different one.
Well, it's just like the timelines were kind of mixed up together in an
so like
interesting way.
in June, and then she starts in May, and then eventually we meet.
That was one thing that like I people said it was confusing, and like I get that. I just wish that it had said May 2010 at the beginning.
Yeah,
that's definitely the year. The fact that it was in 2010, I didn't like pick up on that until later. Like I was keeping really close track of dates because I was like, I'm gonna solve this mystery. So I was like, okay, so the cousin he's missing in June 2010. Like that's when he's writing these letters. So I know what happens in June 2010. But I didn't realize that we were in May 2010 for most of the story.
I didn't either. I thought these were older letters from a different
I thought we were in like 2019, 2020. So like that was the kind of timeline that I was thinking. So like, and I don't think that knowing that it was 2010 up front would have like done much to diminish the suspense. Like I think it just would have helped clarify things.
Right.
Yeah, the year.
But like because I was so like paying close attention to that, I didn't get super confused about Tank being in two places at once. I was just like, oh, Tank is going to get kidnapped by the end of the book. Like,
eventually I was like,
I was able to like look into that a little bit more, but I was still surprised by a lot of things that happened.
I just thought there was like a new character named Tank, and I was like, why did she have two characters named Tank? Like, why would she do that? But obviously that wasn't the case.
Yeah, but I mean, I like when books do that, and they like make it kind of vague, and then you have to figure it out. But like this time, I just felt like dumb for a couple chapters. I was like, wait a minute.
One thing that I did really like about the Tank and like, is he really there? Is he not? Like, is Alice hallucinating him? Kind of thing was that Alice kind of had that moment of self-awareness where he was like, is Tank actually here? Is he a ghost? Like I'm racking my memory to see if he's interacted with the other two boys, and then finding out that the other two boys weren't actually there that was a like
wait. Why didn't I get that? I thought those other two boys killed themselves in the freezer.
No,
they weren't there.
Died drowning with the little boy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like he was like grieving and like making them up on his own.
Oh my god.
A coping method.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And so
I read most of this yesterday, and my dog had died, and I was like half there, and I totally missed that.
Yeah.
It happens at the very end, and it's kind of like it's easy to miss because
they don't like delve into it necessarily, but
that's one thing that gave me a little bit of confusion. I'm like, if all three boys died in the flood, why was Chris the only one who was put into a suitcase and like his body was dropped elsewhere? Like, why weren't they all?
Yeah, that's another thing that just cemented the thing, the freezer thing. I thought they were going to find the kids in the freezer. Huh. Okay. Wow.
Well, did they ever mention of finding the other boys' bodies?
There was let me find the line of that.
Yeah, because I can't remember.
There was something. Let me find the reveal of it. Give me a minute.
Well, I wanted to talk about something that we talked about before the live show. Christine and I listened to the audiobook. I just reread it and listened to the audiobook. And at the end, there's like this sermon. But well, not a sermon, but like an interview in a church with with Tank and Constant. What's her name?
Stance. They call her Constance.
Constance, yeah. So that's a part of the audiobook, but it's not actually in the physical book.
Yeah.
And Christine and I were saying how great of a scene it really is, because like it brings everything kind of back together and like kind of rounds out the story a little bit.
Yeah.
And like really in my book.
But it was like a really nice discussion just about trauma and not how we're kind of made to minimalize our trauma, and that just makes you more depressed because you need to, like, people have to accept that it is trauma, and, like, respect that.
Yeah, because he was talking about how it was easy for him to like compare his trauma to like Alice's, how like he wasn't there as long as Alice was. And so he's like, oh, well, I shouldn't be feeling so like bad about all this. But like, no, like you should. Like, obviously what happened to you is terrible. And like, you're allowed to feel the way that you feel about it and stuff. So it was really great.
Yeah. He used like a really
I wish it was in the physical book too, because I feel like it just adds so much to the story. But
yeah, no, it was really, really just well stated. And they give this really great example about like how if you're like assaulted on the side of the road and it takes like, you know, like 5 minutes for that to happen and it's over, that doesn't mean that you're not traumatized by that incident. That's trauma, and it's going to be with you for the rest of your life. And it doesn't matter how long it was or short it was.
Right.
Yeah, there's no small trauma. So it was a really nice chapter. It's gone.
Yeah.
It must have been in the, Kat was saying it must have been in the arc, and maybe it got shortened in the real.
Didn't get included in the final book.
Yeah.
But so it's the part where we find out what happened to the boys is like right at the very end when Alice and Tank are hearing the bell and they're like about to get out. And let's see, and Tank is saying like, I never met them. Like, what does it say? The boys aren't down here. I'm real. They're not. I never met them. They're in here, knocking on his head. And
when he was saying that, I thought he was talking about them being dead. Like that's why I didn't like dying.
Because their bodies lay rotting in a bunker made to survive a technological apocalypse. Welder made me zip Chris into a suitcase and hand him out, and he dragged me from the water where Rufus and Zared had drowned. I didn't mean to lie to you. I didn't mean to lie to myself.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I really loved that part. I was like crying as she was taking them out of there. And she was like, I was there when we pulled him out, and I was there for this, and I was there for that.
Yeah.
Really, really sad.
Definitely.
It was so sad when she woke up and they were all like, no, it's been too long.
Yeah. They're like, it's been 10 days.
And they like had the funeral ceremony thing or whatever and stuff.
Yeah,
Just, like, the memorial, yeah. That was really sad.
Really, really sad. But do you want to go through like our discussion questions?
Yeah. So who was the character that you guys nailed as the Gemini thief first? Like right off the bat, you were like, this person is it.
Well, I mean, like at first I like the first chapter, I remember I was like, ooh, her dad is creepy AF. What about like I eventually like guessed the least suspected person, and then it was them.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think?
I thought the dad as well, because I mean I was also like trying to suspect everybody, because like I was just like, I know it's probably not gonna be the dad, but like he was like first on my list. I was just like, he's so shady, and it just like everything's adding up, but like I knew that probably wasn't right. So
the person who I kind of pegged early on in the beginning was Nick, the boyfriend.
I thought about Nick too.
They didn't meet until like the day after Alice had gone missing, and like they met like kind of because of him. And then we know Nick is like studying law, and like his older sister is really invested in the case for the 5 years before Alice even went missing. So I was like, this lawyer kid is the one who did it. Like he's somehow doing it. I also suspected Dana for a while, because I was like, well, she's in the FBI for 5 years. Like she could have been doing it for 10 years. And like he would know the most about the case. I just suspected everyone. I really suspected Constance for a couple.
I did too.
Because like this seems like kind of weird that she's like now like inserting herself more in their lives. And then at one point like the Thea kind of dismisses Constance as a possibility, and she's like, I don't even suspect her. Like I hope she's my dad's alibi. And I was like, she probably did it.
Right. I strongly suspected her when she was like, God told me to come and help build the castle or whatever. And I was just like,
God,
interesting.
That's when I didn't suspect her, because I was like, she's saying the same thing. Oh, are we talking at the same time?
Yeah. Go now.
Okay. I didn't suspect her because I thought they were drawing like a parallel to his castle and his ex-wife, and it was kind of like shady about how he broke up with her, it sounded like, because he was like obsessed with doing something, maybe the castle. And I was also suspicious, like, is she actually her mom? Because like It was weird how they were talking about how she looks like her.
Yeah.
This is one of my crackpot theories, okay? So there's all these comments about how like Thea kind of looks like her. But then there's also this mention of Leo, who is her uncle, and like Alice's other uncle, and like Leo had a favorite ex-wife who happened to look remarkably like Thea, and so I thought he was going to be involved with Constance's. I don't know. I didn't have an exact theory worked out, but I was like, something is going on with the fact that they look kind of similar, like a secret mother, or like
Right.
mom's sister or cousin, or like I didn't know what was happening, but I was
Yeah. Sierra in the chat just said my first suspect was Thea's mom, and I just like when you say that, I thought about that too. I was like, oh my gosh, her mom abandoned them. What if it's her mom too? I thought the same thing.
Good theory.
Yeah, but then she never came into the picture. So
yeah.
Raina loves your hoodie, Jesse.
Oh, thanks. She also feels like Kat's eyebrows are on fleek. So even though this book was pretty dark, did you guys have like a standout moment, a moment that you loved?
I really loved the bells moment with the balloon. Like, I just thought that was like so powerful after all like the little builds, like of them trying to get those balloons out of there and no one sees it. And she just like, she had such a good argument when she was like, you guys get to do all your crazy shit and you won't ring the stupid bells? Like, come on.
Yeah.
It hit me emotionally because like all these little ties came together really nice.
Right. It's a good moment.
Yeah, I think for me it was the bell moment as well, because it was like a triumphant, like power within kind of moment where it's like they're gonna be rescued.
And they're not dead.
I think, even though this is like so sad, but I think my standout moment was like the reveal that the two boys weren't real. Because I just found it like so like fascinating that like he had been making it up this whole time that they were real.
I went back and read their interactions, like looking for
like urine cup. That means that they weren't even there when he was trying to make a drink.
There's a lot of interactions of like Zared and Rufus like interacting together, or like they're in another room playing cards, or they're in another room napping a lot, and I'm just like,
oh.
Like Hank is in another room while he's doing the pee, and then he comes in and drinks some and leaves, like because he's like, oh gosh, you're going crazy.
Is there anything that you would have done differently than Thea?
My first thought was like when she went up there and there was a gun, I would have immediately hit the ground. Like, what are you doing? She was like, Nick's gonna get shot. But like, no, she was shot twice and she didn't even realize. Like, get down. If you have a gun, get down. What do you do? Get down. Have you ever seen any TV show or movie? Get down.
Oh man. I feel like the thing that I would have done differently is just like the shady stuff with her dad. Like the hiding of the backpack was really weird to me. Like I would not have gone along with that. Like,
no.
And also,
I can't really think of anything that I would do differently. But as soon as you mentioned the backpack, I was like, oh yeah, I was yelling at the book. I was like, why are you're being complicit? Like if there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong. Don't do that.
Yeah. And then,
that was like even confusing why they were doing it. Really.
Yeah. I also, even though her uncle, I can't remember his name, like ended up not being guilty, I would have put my foot down with like the whole guardianship thing.
Oh,
of, like,
yeah.
She just like, I feel like she wasn't putting up a fight. She was just like kind of going along with it. And I would not have done that at all. Like,
yeah, that was also a weird thing where it's like, I'm going to sign the castle into your name and Uncle, and also your guardianship into Uncle Warren. And she was just like, okay.
I know.
Like, and also like Uncle Warren's basement was super fucking sketch and like, like we didn't go in there, but like, is that his safe with all his guns double padlocked in the basement? Why did his other uncle come in there with a gun? Like, why did he have a gun? You know what I'm talking about? The Uncle Scott?
Scotty. Yeah.
I think he had a gun.
Did that happen when Sheila was sneaking into his house?
Into Warren's house, yeah.
Warren's house? Okay, I remember that now. I don't.
I mean, I wasn't surprised that he had a gun because he seemed like the kind of guy that would have a gun.
I mean, pointed at your niece?
I mean, where does this book take place again?
Awesome, but...
Like a mix between Kentucky and Tennessee.
Then it would make sense that they had guns, I guess.
I mean, I pointing a gun at your family member.
No, yeah. That's obviously not okay.
Yeah. Very not okay.
Yeah. But let us know in the comments what you guys would have done differently if you were in Thea's position.
I mean, I also feel like I would have been more excited about the castle. Like, that was kind of, I mean, I was suspicious about it for a lot because I kept thinking it was going to somehow tie into, like, why the boys were kidnapped. Like, one theory that I had early on that I felt like it was kind of an easy theory was that the dad and, like, maybe one of her uncles was, like, doing this together, and they were, like, really into, like, doomsday prepping, and so they were kidnapping the boys as kind of a trial run. It was like surviving in their doomsday bunker kind of thing, and so that's what they were taking care of.
I thought he was going to say, like...
Huh?
Yeah, I thought he was gonna say that, like, God told him that he has to, like, take 6 boys and put them in that basement every year or something.
I'm glad it wasn't like that.
I'm glad it wasn't like that.
I'm glad it wasn't either. Like, when he pulled that, when he, like, first said that thing about, like, well, like, God came to me in a dream and told me I had to build a castle, I was like, oh no.
Oh, man. I still feel weird about the castle because, like, he took the money that was supposed to be for Thea's college and used it for the castle, and I'm just like, I get that this is your passion and like you're running after it, but can we not do that? Oh man.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't like if that were my life. But I liked how that was done in the book because I thought it was interesting and different from like the kind of things like we normally see a lot. Yeah. Like the dad is a very eccentric character and like he's doing these things that are kind of like harming his daughter in a way, but he's doing it out of like a good place. Like there's not anything malicious to it. It's just like a eccentric kind of weird thing. And so I don't know, I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, like he's a little wacky.
Oh yeah, for sure.
100%.
But I thought that made him such an interesting character.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely. Speaking of characters, which character stood out the most to you in this book?
Alice.
Who?
Alice.
Alice. Mm.
Yeah, Alice and Gladys, I think.
For me, it was Alice and the dad, Don, probably.
For me, it was Constance. I really liked her presence in the book. And I feel like she was kind of the mother figure that Thea needed and was like, and like ended up becoming a really nice support system for her. And I just really liked seeing that. Even though I was kind of suspicious of her as well.
Yeah, I have to say, like, I like a lot of those like relationship dynamics a lot more in retrospect because like while I was reading, I was too suspicious of anyone to like buy any niceness. Like after reading, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm glad Thea had a nice kind of like mother figure. But while it was happening, I was like, this is suspicious. Don't.
Yeah. I see a lot of people have been asking like about the correlation with Noah's Ark. And they had a really good, Ruta and Court had a really nice discussion toward the end about this and about how like, you know, when he was building Noah's Ark, you know, everyone thought he was crazy and it's all about like, until it started to rain, you know, like, so it's all about the perspective when you do something crazy. And I don't think like, was it ever really explained why he built the ark? I don't think like it was an ark, like the castle. It was just like, well, was it ever explained why he built it? I think the story leads us to believe that like if he hadn't built it, they wouldn't have had those bells and they wouldn't have been able to find the boys. But like he just wanted to build a castle, I think. Like I think that guy was really like into that idea and went with it.
Yeah. I really like the interview with Ruta and Court at the end, and they, speaking of the castle, they talked about like castles And like what's like the one thing in your life that's like your castle, like your passion, like the thing in your life that you're like super passionate about?
Yeah.
So what's your castle, guys?
I know, like mine was through like 2012 on was building my YouTube channel. Like it was literally all I eat, slept, and thought about all the time and worked on all the time. And I think to build a channel, you do have to have a time where it is your castle.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's probably been all of our castles. Now it's probably like book stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. For me, it's probably writing.
For me, it's Animal Crossing. So I'm just kidding. YouTube is obviously mine as well, for sure. Definitely my castle.
Yeah. Anyone who's built a channel knows you have to make it your castle or it's not going to happen.
So how did you guys feel about their feelings towards Ruby at the end? A discussion point at the end of the book talks about like forgiveness and how forgiveness can be like more difficult with certain people. And why do you believe that's like a true thing?
Because human relationships are complicated. It's like the line earlier in the book where it's like Thea doesn't feel just one thing anymore. Like emotions become more complex and like there's more nuance. Like she can be sad and relieved that someone is gone.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and say her dad turned out to be the person who's the kidnapper. Like she's not gonna just be able to like hate her dad or like think everything and be fine with him like going off to jail and stuff. Like she's gonna feel sad, she's gonna miss him, she's gonna still love him, and it's just human nature to like, these people are not bad or good, we're all gray and have good and bad parts. And that's the thing that I feel like when you're young it's harder to see, that you want to be able to pigeonhole people into like good guy, bad guy, and a lot of the times I feel like in like relationships and stuff, when you're younger, I feel like it's really easy to like see that person who like, you know, weird in a book. Like, and we see this now, like when we read a book where there's like a relationship where someone like maybe kisses another person in high school and like everyone's like, they're terrible, don't ever look at them again. Like they're a person and they like made a mistake and there's a lot more to them. And you're not gonna like hate them forever because they have good parts and they made mistakes, just like everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I wish I had something to add to that, but I agree.
I mean, it's also interesting the concept of like what sides you see of a person. You know, like Thea only knew her father as like someone who never hurt her and was like, yeah, eccentric, but he was her dad. He took care of her. Like he never did anything where she like felt threatened. But she had to seriously consider like he might be that way around other people. Like just because I've never seen it doesn't mean he's not capable of it, kind of thing.
Yeah. And just like, I mean, her looking back, you know, there's like a point where she thinks about how he never like cooked anything and like they had my ice cream at midnight all the time and like it was fun, but then she realizes that she kind of wasn't like cared for in the best way sometimes. I feel like he was kind of negligent because his mind was so on other things and stuff. Yeah. And he couldn't wait to like give her to someone else to take care of if they wanted to take care of her, like his friends and their spouses.
Right.
Yeah, that was one kind of like that's one thing that I really love about YA books is that sort of like coming of age angle where like characters are growing up in the world and they're realizing that like people can be really complex and like especially the kind of disillusionment of like your parent can be a bad person kind of thing.
Yeah. Been delving into that a
lot. What are some books you would recommend to people who enjoyed the June Boys?
I think the closest Booksplosion book is Little Monsters in terms of like trying to figure out who did it.
I also was thinking of Two Can Keep a Secret.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Cara Thomas book.
Because it kind of has like that small town feel to it.
It does.
I think that would be a good one.
And that was another one that I did not see the ending coming. Like
right.
The ending, I was like, it could be that person or that person or that person.
Yes. Yeah.
I was gonna say this is a different, like, it's different, but it's dark and it has like murders and stuff, and that's Ninth House.
Okay. Ninth House.
Which is classified as more of an adult book and it has more fantasy elements in it. but it still feels like the same sort of feeling where like you're like, what's going on? Like, let's figure it out. Da, 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 da.
I just thought of another one. Burned by Ellen Hopkins has a very similar feel to I think that's the first one. It's a duology. So the Burned duology, just read that if you liked this book. It has a very similar feeling, and like the shock factor, hello, it's there. So
yeah.
Should we sort the characters now into Hogwarts houses?
Sure.
Like we always do?
Yeah.
All right, let's start with Thea.
I think she's a Gryffindor.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, she has that Gryffindor act now, think about it later attitude.
Yes.
She definitely does. And her
Very
boyfriend
driven.
is like a Ravenclaw.
Yeah. I think
Nick. What about Olive?
She has a lot of Ravenclaw tendencies as well, because she was very like strategic and thinking about a lot of stuff.
Right.
Olive almost felt like a Hufflepuff, and like how hard he wanted to believe and help everybody live. Like,
I can see that because he was very hardworking and like he was taking care of the other boy.
That's true.
Yeah,
like comforting them and stuff.
Yeah.
I can
let me think. Tank feels like a Gryffindor.
I feel like I didn't get to know Tank well
Yeah,
enough.
I don't know enough, but like from what I do know,
Yeah.
stay Gryffindor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has some Gryffindor tendencies.
Yes.
The dad could be a Ravenclaw.
I can definitely see Ravenclaw, that like eccentric, obsessive side of Ravenclaw.
Yeah, that's what he is. The cop, maybe he's off. The Warren, right? That's his.
Warren, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Tank. Oh, Tank was valedictorian. Oh yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah, I can see him being Ravenclaw.
But he ran after that backpack on his own. That was a reckless Gryffindor move.
It was. But he was doing it for his friends, which was like a Hufflepuff. He could be
that Hufflepuff loyalty, yeah.
I might not have gone, honestly. Like, I would have been like, I'm not going by myself.
Yeah. It's June 1st. What are you doing?
It was kind of stupid. What about Dana? I really liked Dana. I feel like we got a really good feel for who she is.
Maybe.
I want to say she's like either Slytherin or Ravenclaw.
I was kind of feeling a Slytherin vibe.
Yeah.
She just has like that presence, I feel like.
Yeah,
like a really strong presence.
Yeah. There's this intensity to her when she's like doing her job.
Yeah.
What about Ruby? She's like a crazy Hufflepuff.
Yeah. Like a Hufflepuff gone bad.
Yeah.
Oh my god, she's a Hufflepuff gone bad.
Yeah.
She's a Hufflepuff gone bad.
Very much so.
Dang. Yeah, as soon as she looked stressed out, I was like, well.
Well, there it is.
Let me see.
Did we sort the dad?
Yeah, Ravenclaw.
Ravenclaw.
He's a cool Ravenclaw.
And I think they sorted all the main characters.
Yeah.
Nick, yeah.
We have some audience questions. Why do you think Alice wrote the letters to Elizabeth Smart?
I think that was probably the most famous case he could relate to his own, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we do have it established earlier on that Alice likes writing letters to famous people. So I thought that like that tied in nicely that like, yeah, well, he's stuck in kidnapping. Of course, he's going to be writing a letter to someone. And I think it was like that was the most well-known case that he like thought of someone to write to.
Right. What did you think about the principal and her husband? I honestly forgot about them.
Suspicious.
Yeah, same.
As soon as the principal was like, we want to buy the castle from you, but just to help I was like, she's the number.
I was like, why?
That was really weird.
I was also expecting a reveal around the castle, like a bit, like some kind of bigger purpose to it, or some kind of like it was built over a gold mine or something, and like everyone wanted a secret gold mine underneath it. I was like, why does everyone want this castle so much?
Right. Oh man. Do you think the story should have been more linear, or do you like the disjointed timeline?
I like it. I think like one more, like we were talking about how like the year at the end would have been nice.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted was the year at the end. Or even if the dates said May, what day they were, and then the year. Just so I had a better idea of like the pacing throughout the month of May. But I liked that we got to see it go back and forth, and it created an interesting tension when I realized that like Tank is kidnapped, so he's gonna be kidnapped.
Right.
The boys haven't seen Welder in like 10, 20 days, whatever the count is, then like the killer is gonna die at some point, and then it's gonna become a quest to like find the boys after the killer dies. So I liked the tension that created, because like once I pieced that together, it was still a big mystery, and I was like, oh, how is this gonna play out? Yeah.
Definitely.
Cool.
What did you think about the loose ends? Was it frustrating, or do you like to imagine different scenarios when this happened?
I didn't feel like I had that many loose ends. I feel
I'm trying to think of some of the loose ends.
I mean, I think like loose ends is more like unresolved kind of things. Like,
the
principal was so interested in buying the castle.
I feel like crazy stuff just happens when like the town is in such a like state of uproar too, that like there's no really rhyme or reason. Sometimes they're just like, well, that's available. Why don't I buy it? Well, it's cheap and he's a murderer. But I don't know. I feel like that's a thing with books a lot. Like, you know, they don't have time to wrap up all those little ends, but they wrap up all the stuff that matters to like the central theme and the central plot.
Yeah. Like I kind of liked that we had sort of like loose ends, because we have those in life. You know, the fact that like we never got to see Thea's mom, she never came into the picture. Like I kind of expected that for a little bit, but like, I'm fine that it never happened, because like it feels more realistic. Like, yeah, her mom was mentioned, but she's not important to the story. She didn't come up. So I kind of liked that, because I like Christine said, the whole mystery had like a conclusion and an arc. And, like, that's tied up.
Right.
So
like the main thing was resolved, and that's really all we need.
Yeah. Sierra said why Scotty pointed the gun at Thea, and that's Scotty, I think, was kind of losing his mind with his son, I guess.
Yeah.
He's in a really bad mental space, but I still don't like it.
Yeah. It's not like I would like excuse Scotty for pointing a gun at Thea, but he didn't know it was her at first. Like he did put it down like relatively quick. He didn't like hold her hostage or anything. So it might have been just like he thought someone was breaking into the house, and so he had his gun out, and then when he saw who it was, he like put it away. I mean, Dana also pointed her gun at Thea and Nick when they were making out in her house.
Making out.
Oh my gosh, forgot about that.
I forgot about that too.
What do you think about Ruby being the kidnapper and why she did it? We kind of touched on this already.
I think like it all makes sense when she was abused as a child, so she's like a little, you know, she's damaged in certain ways that
she has her own trauma.
And then she lost a child, and I mean, if they're not given the right help, and you know, who knows what's gonna happen with people. They try to help themselves. Sad. Yeah,
her reasoning made sense, but it was just sad.
Mm-hmm. And it's sad that like Griff didn't like know that she was in this much pain, that she felt the need to do stuff like this.
Yeah.
For years. Like she was doing this for years.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Did anyone feel like the town's reaction was underplayed, or that it could have been more dramatic, creating more possible Gemini thieves on all sides? So like more suspects, I guess?
I feel like when they have a suspect, it's like really easy to focus on that one person. You gotta, it's like branding. Like they're gonna like take it and run with it.
Yeah.
Till like someone else is really.
Especially because he was very suspicious.
Especially since he's a weird character. Yeah.
I mean, I also think that, you know, most of the town wasn't paying as much attention because, like, yes, Alice was from their town and he went missing, but his circumstances were also a little different from like the normal Gemini kidnapping. So like it wasn't completely clear for a while, like if Alice was kidnapped. And yeah, I just think that it was such a small town that like a lot of people didn't think that the Gemini thief would be there. Because like these things had been happening all over the state, like all over a larger area. So I feel like a lot of people in the town, it felt distanced from them.
Right. That just reminded me, for whatever reason, of the graduation scene when she got booed off the stage or whatever. That made me so upset. It's like as if it was her fault that like,
yeah,
this is happening.
That happens a lot. Like the kids are blamed for their parents' crazy.
Right.
That's like the plot of Cursed Child.
We have time for a few more questions, so if you guys want to drop some in the comments, we'll be keeping our eyes out for them.
Let's see. How did you feel when they started doing the balloons and how that tied into saving them? It was really nice and really like nerve-wracking for them to be doing those balloons and not getting any response.
Yeah, definitely.
I did like how the helium tank like came into play, because when that first showed up, I was like, what are they going to do with that? Have a funny voice for a while? So I was glad that it became like the thing that saved them.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is dedication. I have to be on a Zoom call at the same time as this, so I'm just commenting. I'm looking forward to going back and watching for real. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for being here, Hannah.
We appreciate it.
What did you think of the God aspect of the story? I always think it's fascinating when God comes into books and like at the parallels it might be calling back to from like famous religious stories and stuff. Yeah, and I think everyone can take it in their own way.
Yeah.
Depending on like where you lie there.
Yeah, that was one aspect that I was glad was left a little open-ended, kind of like a loose end thing. Is like the people who were doing things for religious reasons or like because God told them, like it wasn't really framed in any sort of like positive or negative way, which I appreciated because it like left it open for more interpretation. Like I'm really curious about like the details of Constance heard God speak to her and told her to help Don finish building his castle. Like that was really interesting to me. And I don't know, I kind of liked that it ended up not being like a part of the plot. Like that was just sort of a character thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's always really interesting the turn that like that kind of a plot will take. It kind of reminded me of, I don't remember A Prayer for Owen Meany, but I remember there was like some fascinating like God parallels in there.
From what?
A Prayer for Owen Meany. I had to read it for like summer reading in high school. And it always like stood out to me because there was like a really fascinating like religious parallels, and I always wrote my papers on like religious parallels.
I have a question. Christine, why are you August?
Because it's the June Boys and I was born in August.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to hear your reasoning.
I was gonna write August Gal, but then I was like, is that weird? I don't want to be like kidnapped, so
that took me like a second to process because I didn't know her name was August on here. Oh man. Let's take like one more question, I guess.
Cool.
Oh, okay. I like this one. At the beginning, did you think Alice would be dead or alive when they eventually found him?
I thought he'd be alive by the end of it. But in the beginning, I was like thinking it was already a June boy from a different season, so I can't.
Yeah, I kept going back and forth on this because like I wanted him to be alive. And especially once we found out that it was like a concurrent thing and not like, oh, he died 10 years ago in 2010 because it's 2020 now kind of thing. But I didn't know what it was going to be. Like I could really see it going either way. But as by the end, I was really hoping he was alive. Like once I put together that like Tank was there with him, and I was like, Tank's not going to die. Like now that Tank is with all us, like they're going to get rescued.
Mm. I like thought he was going to stay alive, but like the deeper in we got, like I just kept losing hope because it just felt like things weren't getting better. So like, I don't know, I just thought he was going to die. But
it was like really, really sad toward the end.
Mm.
I can't
start to lose hope.
Yeah, I've never read a scene or like reading urine like that. It felt so like real, like I was sitting there doing it and having to do it, and like imagine how disgusting it would actually be if I had like a thing full of my pee or like my friend's pee and we had to drink it. Like that's nasty AF.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he like got pushed to that point, like it made the situation feel so desperate.
Yeah.
And multiple times, like they were like, it's pee drinking time again.
And with that, we come to the close of the June Boys discussion. Thank you guys so much for joining us this month. We really enjoyed reading this book with you guys. Again, next month we are reading, or this month technically, we are reading We Are the Wildcats by SIOBHAN Vivian. Our live show is on May 30th. Dear Booksplosion episode on May 20th.
Yes.
Oh wait, are we announcing our June book of the month?
Oh yeah, we have a June book of the month.
Yeah.
Who wants to announce it?
So you might have already seen it, and it's not like any of us have early copies, so we can't hold anything up.
True.
A ballad.
Our reading.
A ballad.
Of Songbirds.
Is it songbirds and snakes or snakes and songbirds? I don't know
what it is.
It's the Songbirds and Snakes. It's the new Hunger Games book.
Reading the new Hunger Games book.
Can you tell that we rehearsed that review?
Really nailed it. Yeah, we're going to be reading that in June. We're super excited about it. Well, we'll probably read it. Are you guys going to read it in May when it comes out? Or
May 19th, so it comes out like at the end of May. I'm planning to read it hopefully right away because I'm too afraid of spoilers to let anything go.
Exactly. All right. Well, that's it for our live show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye.